Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Sit, and welcome to Asian Viewpoints. We're continuing our conversation today with the artist Wen-ti Tsen. At 87 years old, Wen-ti isn't taking it easy and resting on his laurels. He is busy creating new things, and his latest project is building 4 life-size bronze sculptures in Boston's Chinatown. So, Wen-ti, when did you first start doing art? How old were you when you first started drawing and sketching?
I wasn't very good at when I was a child. I wasn't too interested. I kind of born in the beginning of the Second World War in China, which is 1936. Japan invaded in 37. But my mother was an artist that trained in France. And she had a lot of art books. So I loved looking at the pictures of all the saints with arrows sticking out of them and things like that, or the Baroque paintings. So I
Uh-huh.
loved looking at pictures, and the drawings I did when I was 6 or 7 is mostly about wars,
Mhm.
soldiers killing each other, things like that. So my mother was, even though she's an artist, she didn't want me to be anywhere near an artist. So she wanted me to be an engineer. So I
Of
thought we
course.
made a compromise. So I'll go to architecture school. Luckily, my mother, being a professional artist, went off for 2 years for one of her professional trips. So I was left in London by myself in an architecture school. And close by the next architecture school is the art department. And they have these live drawings about, you know, mm, young women, young men, and all these
Right.
that I kind of love to look at and to draw. So I just shifted from the architecture school to the art department.
So, Wenty, you're sort of an accidental artist. You sort of defaulted to
Yes, by
art.
for choice of being an artist or being freedom of the
Mhm.
artist, knowing that what art can know that you can do things without anybody looking over your shoulder demanding who you are.
Well, you were born in Shanghai, lived in Hong Kong, went to school in China, Paris, and London. How did this living all around the world and going to school in different places influence your art?
No, I was born in Shanghai, and when the revolution came, we moved to Hong Kong, and then my mother, being studied in France, decided not to stay in Hong Kong but moved to Paris. So I was like 13, so that was a kind of like a I had a terrible career in China in schools. I was cheating and missing schools, everything. So it was good to leave all that behind and start my new life in
Mhm.
Paris in an English school. And then after a couple of years, I was sent to school in London, which is miserable high school
Mm,
in London, wear uniforms, caps, and all this stuff.
yeah.
And I was the only Chinese in the school. I was playing the artist actually more
Right.
than, and every place you go to, I mean, I could speak French very well. Everybody, I pretend to be
Uh,
sort of an artist coming to visit, and everybody would take me around to all the interesting places. As our students would get together. No, everybody was acting up. I
so,
mean,
when did you become a serious artist where you
I
actually made
was
money from your art?
right. It's when after a while my family moved to America, and they decided to stop all the funding for my hitchhiking, and so in Europe, so I had to come to, and my mother registered me at the Boston Museum School, so I started. And the American schools treat everybody like teenagers, so you're not allowed to run around doing things. So I
Right.
started learning how to be a painter, and then after that, after 3 years, I got a grant as a they call traveling scholarship.
Mhm.
So it's $4,500, which at that time was
That was
still
a lot of
pretty
money back
good.
then.
Yeah. So I was able to travel for 2 years. I decided I want to see India. So the only criteria is that we have to leave America. So
Mhm.
I went to Paris, bought a tiny little car, and decided to drive to India. The unfortunate thing is that India and China was having a war
Oh my goodness.
in 1961 or something. They won't let me in. So that's why I stayed in Pakistan. I
So
drove,
from
it took about 6 months to go from Paris.
Paris to Pakistan. Let's
Yeah.
take a look at some of your art. We have a piece called Peaceable Kingdom. Tell me about
Yes.
that.
And then the Vietnam War came along, which really touched my heart.
Right.
The racism and all that stuff. So I wanted to do a series of worked into looking at the racism and the race wars. So I did the Peaceable Kingdom. It's a satire. I mean, it's not so much a satire. It's in two. The doors open. There's two levels. On the outside, there's a bunch of American media characters who they're from magazines and things like that, looking as though they're looking at a TV screen, and in the TV screen there's a Vietnamese prisoner, just a face,
Right.
very torched up, and then when you open up, which is like the old-fashioned icons that people have, you open up, and inside is the reproduction of Edward Hicks' Peaceable Kingdom, which is so sarcastic about this, the American dream.
Let's look at this Chinatown mural. You are a co-artist with another artist named David Fichter. Is that right?
Yes.
And is this still up in Boston, Chinatown?
No, that was torn down.
Okay.
It was done with the idea that to promote against gentrification.
Okay.
And because at that time, a lot of Chinatown was being demolished for institutions. After the mural, I got involved with the community and started talking more and more with the people, what is issues in the community. So the comic books describe the different Asian experiences of different groups of Asians.
And tell me, who is Vivian Lee?
I did an oral history with her because she is a part of the Chinatown, real Chinatown experience, which I was the outsider.
Tell me about Generation Gates.
Yeah, that's also the continuation between the understanding. One of the things, talking more and more with people among Asian Americans, there's often the feeling that young people, they grow up as mostly American, with sometimes not speaking the parents' language at all, and there's a gap between that, and the parents quite often are not very fluent in English, so their gaps become parents and their children separated. So this one is to show the gaps between parents and children. But I came back in 1972, 73. During the Nixon era. So America has changed a lot. The first thing I got was to become a billboard painter. The one only skill that I have is to paint billboard. And I like the idea of painting large. So after 1 year, I actually quit.
Okay.
And I went on unemployment with my little baby. So I was very happy. And then I decided I better find something to pay the bills. So I got trained as a movie projectionist, and which is ideal because at that time movies run for 20 minutes per reel, and you do like 3 minutes of work putting the film together, and then the rest of the time, the 22 minutes, is all yours. And I set up drawing things, and I did posters, comic books, and things like that in the projection booth.
Wen-ti, let me ask you about being a public artist, because many people who are artists, they will paint one painting, somebody buys it, it goes in their home, and only, a dozen people see it in that painting's lifetime, maybe, right? But
Yes.
You do public art. So your art's out there, it's large, it's giant. Do you feel a sense of responsibility to the community, or do you just paint for yourself? And why do you like being a public artist?
To be a public artist, actually, it's a necessity because of political beliefs that I think the community is really important. And there was a lot to learn. My training both in Europe and America is to be an individual artist. You grab something from the air, your inspiration,
Right.
and you're supposed to suffer and all that. I never find that very satisfactory. And after a while, what is in my brain is kind of, who cares? Mm, so, so on one side, I still like to do paintings as good as possible, taking as long as I want to paint this, to be challenged to with all the museum, big
Mhm.
great art that I've seen. And that does not work in public art because there's a time limitation, there's a funding limitation. So I work for in the public art doing applying for grants. So that pays the bill. I never need to sell my paintings, to make a living. So I paint on my own, make installations on my own, and then do and work with the public to satisfy my urge for to be with the community, to talk to a lot of people. Mm. The
So
trouble with
public art helps you feel connected to the community, right?
right.
But you also are restricted, as you said, in funding. And also when they commission you to do something, they have an idea, whoever it is, the committee or the city or
Right.
whoever, of what they want. So you sort of have to create what they want. Do you feel like that restricts your creativity?
No, mostly those projects are often generated by myself,
Okay,
so that I make and communicate with the organization to support it, that they will apply for the grants.
great. So it's
The,
your idea. You want to create public art.
More or less, like comic
Space.
book, I think is a good idea, and they thought it's a good idea. I mean, I have awareness what is needed in the community. The trouble with working sometimes with all these people who are, they're very professionals at
Mhm.
different social organizations. They don't have much interest in art as art itself. They're
Right,
interested in using art as a communication device, but
right.
not as a. So it doesn't matter whether you do a beautiful thing or not so beautiful. For myself, I have aesthetic requirements that I want to do and applied all my skill in doing it. And it works.
Really?
People know my name as a public artist and they support it as me as a public artist. They recognize that certain things that I do is helpful to the community, just like the statues would be,
Right.
I think.
Thank you so much, Wen-ti, for being with us and sharing with us your story about your art and how you became an
Yeah.
artist and a public artist.
Yes, I think it's very enjoyable being an artist, and I recommend it for a lot of people.
If you enjoyed this interview, please click the like button below and subscribe to this channel. I'll have a new video every Thursday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.